Well, welcome to the Innovation and Collaboration Coming Together in a Crisis Roundtable. Today, I'm Bill Crovate, and I'm the head of IP at Merck, a pharmaceutical company. I have with me Michael Bugbee from Tenneco, Isabella Fu from Microsoft, and Daryl Fricke from Dow Chemical. I'll tell you a little bit about what Merck has done. Merck, in the beginning of the pandemic, obviously we have quite a bit of manufacturing in the US, and the manufacturing folks do use a lot of PPE. So Merck, during the initial stages of the pandemic, was donating to local hospitals in the areas in which we have facilities, PPE for the healthcare workers. In conjunction with that, or sort of following from that, because we are a large pharmaceutical and vaccine manufacturer, a large effort was undertaken to screen our compound libraries to look for active compounds. Unfortunately, we didn't find any that were any better than some of the other ones that were out there. We also, like the rest of our peers in the pharmaceutical industry, undertook to partner with academics or other small companies that had their own pharmaceuticals or vaccine candidates that might be active against COVID, the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Ultimately, we were unsuccessful in the pursuit of a vaccine, but in conjunction with Emory University and a company that they licensed a compound to, Ridgeback, that we ultimately did a collaboration with to develop molnupiravir, which we've now sought to get emergency use authorization in the US and in other countries. It was recently approved for that purpose in the UK. And this is a pill that you would take at the onset of symptoms, and it has been shown on the order of 50% to reduce severe hospitalization and death. So just another armamentarium in the fight against COVID, and hopefully will be one of the things that helps us get to the other side of it and make it just a routine sort of flu-like rather than the devastating pandemic it's been. I'm going to go around and ask each of the panelists to talk a little bit about their company and what they did in themselves, and then we can dive into some of the questions that we have for the roundtable. So I'll start with Michael. Maybe you can give us a bit about yourself and Tenneco.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Bill. Yeah, my name's Mike Bugbee. I've been with Tenneco about 20 years now. Just for those who don't know Tenneco, we're a $15 billion supplier to automotive, commercial truck, and industrial markets. And we're a very global company, headquartered in Lake Forest, and I'm located in Detroit. To talk a little bit about our response and what we did during the COVID pandemic, I think that the biggest accomplishment was our involvement in the General Motors Project V. If you remember back at the beginning of the pandemic, the availability of ventilators was a major issue. And I, at the time, was the customer director working closely with GM, representing Tenneco Powertrain. And I also run our lighting business unit, which manufactures harnesses and different connectors for lighting applications in North America. So through that process, we were able to connect with GM, and knowing our capabilities and knowing what they were looking for, we were able to produce a wire harness that is used in a fan application in the ventilators. So we really took our technology that was traditionally used to power a lighting application, a headlamp or an interior lamp, and instead of connecting to a lamp housing, we were connecting to a fan that was then used in the ventilators. So I think a really great example using our technology in a new way, very quickly, in fact, to get up and running on this fan wire harness that was then used in the ventilators. So again, really a great team effort that happened so quickly as well. I think that was another aspect of it that's really important, to be able to turn on that production in a matter of weeks really was a huge accomplishment. In the end, we produced something like 35,000 of these fan harnesses that were used in the ventilators. So that was, I think, the biggest thing I was involved with personally, running that business and being able to help pull that together in collaboration with GM, who were great partners in the whole process as well. So yeah, I think that was a big thing for Tenneco. We also explored other opportunities in our sealing business unit, as well as in filters. We tried to produce some N95 masks. In the end, I think those things didn't come through from a timing perspective in some cases, but there was a lot of different groups within the company that were trying to support our employees and the people of the world really to fight the pandemic. And then maybe lastly, within our operations as well, we really changed the way that we ran our business. We still had to go to work every day in our factories. We never shut most of our factories down. So changing the way people work and working safely in a manufacturing environment was a huge accomplishment as well.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Isabella, can you tell us a bit about yourself and Microsoft?
I'm Isabella Fu. I am the Chief Patent Counsel at Microsoft Corporation. I've been here nearly 20 years, and my team does everything regarding patents at the company, things like filing patents, licensing patents, and advising the company about all things related to patents and IP. So at Microsoft, our mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And that became really, really important during COVID. As Mike mentioned, everybody had to work differently. So people stayed home, they had to work from home, people had to go to school from their homes. And I think we all used our computers and services that Microsoft provides a lot more. But separately from all that, and I think we're going to talk a little bit more about innovation and digital transformation later, the company also did a lot of other things to help people through the pandemic. We donated lots and lots of computers to both schools and to hospitals who, unfortunately, a lot of patients were unable, due to quarantine, to see their family while they were in the hospital. We donate a lot of computers so people could communicate with their families, and sometimes, sadly, it was some of their last communications with their families. We sponsored many research grants for people who are doing basic research, and surprisingly, you might think that a technology company, because we're not a medical company, doesn't necessarily have a lot to contribute to solving some of the problems related to the disease, but we actually gave away a lot of data and data sets that helped people do things like track where the disease was occurring, track things like how aid programs were getting distributed in communities, and separately, we also got a lot of random requests for people had read some of our patents and saw some of our technology and wanted to license it. And rather than trying to work out a deal with all these people who asked us for licenses, we actually decided to take a pledge. It was called the Open COVID Pledge, where we pledged our patents to be used royalty-free to anybody who needed to use them for just for the purpose of containing and mitigating the disease. It's a limited time. That pledge will expire after the end of the pandemic. But that can give you an idea of the breadth of some of our activities.
Great. Thank you, Isabella. And Daryl, can you tell us a bit about yourself and Dow?
Sure, Bill. Thank you. Hi, I'm Daryl Fricke. I'm the Assistant General Counsel for IP Law at Dow, and I have the honor to lead Dow's global intellectual property operations, and that includes patents, trademarks, copyrights, licensing, and IP protection and enforcement. For those who may not be familiar with Dow, we're a material science company, and what that means is our products enable just about every aspect of life, from the mattress you wake up on, to the personal care products that you use at the start of the day in the bathroom, to the packing of the food you eat, to the transportation you take to school or maybe to work, to the construction materials throughout your school building or office, to your cell phone and the communication networks you rely upon to use it. And because we enable so many things, it's no exaggeration to say that Dow's continued operations were truly critical to keeping and helping the world move forward throughout the pandemic. In fact, our products go into antiseptics, disinfectants, detergents, personal protection equipment used by medical and hospital workers, and more. And our teams and materials were vital to the fight against the virus throughout the world. And another thing you might not know about us is that every member of Team Dow loves to solve problems. We are problem solvers. And that's what makes us who we really are, and makes us excited about our work at Dow each and every day. That love of problem solving was a rallying cry for our whole 36,000 person team in response to the COVID crisis, which required really each and every part of the company to jump into action. And I'll give a couple examples. For example, right at the beginning, our occupational health and safety teams rapidly put in place safety practices and protocols so that we could keep a third of our Dow team, 12,000 people, in the manufacturing plants and science laboratories, producing materials needed to help fight the pandemic. Dow also published and shared practices and protocols to help others operate safely. And our digital teams and the infrastructure they built over the past several years, and in partnership with our commercial teams, really allowed us to move all of our customer transactions to an easy, effective virtual experience like e-commerce, real-time shipment visibility, and remote technical collaborations between customer labs and production facilities. In addition, our supply chain and logistic teams really jumped into action, not just to help us navigate shipping disruptions for both our raw materials and our products, but we helped our customers navigate too. So essential products really could keep flowing to where they were needed most. And as we think back to the onset of the pandemic, I think that was already sort of mentioned. There was a special urgency around the shortage of personal protective equipment and healthcare supplies. So a great example is hand sanitizer. In the past, Dow never made hand sanitizer, but many of our customers were urging us to begin. So our engineering and scientific teams went to the labs and production facilities. They looked at our capabilities, and we saw that we already had a large portion of the required raw materials at our site. So our teams quickly modified 5 manufacturing plants in Europe, Latin America, North America to produce hand sanitizer. We tapped into our own supply and logistics networks to enable distribution, and worked with governments to certify, our new hand sanitizer product, because it was something we had never made before. And in just a matter of weeks, we were in production making more than 200 metric tons, which is, equivalent to about 1 million 8-ounce bottles, all for donation. And then in addition to the hand sanitizer, one other quick example, our production teams also knew that as the coronavirus started to emerge globally, there was, going to be a huge shortage of many, many important materials. Take one, for example, isopropyl alcohol, IPA. So our teams quickly retooled one of our plants in Texas City to rapidly ramp up production, which ultimately made more IPA available for sanitizer, pharmaceutical, and medical applications, many of which are used to help fight the virus. Back to you, Bill.
Great. Thank you, Daryl. Yes, I think, it's amazing how when we think back to 2019, it does seem like ancient history almost, but the beginning of the pandemic was a huge disruption for many of us and many of our companies. Certainly a lot of folks had responsibilities that they could not work from home, but many of us had huge, I would call office staff and for example, IP lawyers and other folks that had desk jobs. And that put an immediate pressure, I think, on all kinds of networks and other things. And Isabella, I imagine this transition for most of us to an online existence created something of a necessity for Microsoft to do some innovation, to change things, to get up to speed, to sort of meet the crazy increased demand. What were some of the improvements and products and services that Microsoft stepped up to accomplish?
So thanks for the question, Bill. I think, as you know, we all of us on this call, including our companies, have been undergoing a digital transformation for years. We're all very technically sophisticated, but there was a whole new level of interest in moving everything to a virtual environment and an online environment when the pandemic hit. And so we really had to step up our game in that respect. I mean, in a lot of ways, it was very, very lucky because we've been pushing for this kind of transformation for a long time. And then all of a sudden to have so many more users using the products so much more frequently, really put us to the test, but it also gave us a huge amount of feedback. So we had to really scale up the amount of usage. I mean, I think we are all spending more time on our computers and more time with very high usage products such as video instead of just phone calling. We're all also collaborating with documents and other things online with many other people. And so the need for that bandwidth, as we all sit here in our homes, right? I'm sure we've all experienced it, right? You have a limited bandwidth when everybody in your home is online. And so you think about the people who provide those services. And of course, we had to scale up a lot. So we had obviously essential workers throughout the pandemic who had to go into our data centers and warehouses and make that work. There was also a need, anytime you scale up a lot, you find more bugs. And so, our teams were on deck all the time, to help people, avoid outages and fix their problems. We also had a whole new set of users. I mean, we've always had schools and universities be our customers, but in a whole new way. Before the pandemic, I don't think many elementary schools were using computers as intensively, with the youngest children having to get online and take their classes online. And all of a sudden we had, many more teachers having to learn how to do this and coach their students through it. And so that gave us a huge amount of feedback to make our products more user-friendly. Many of you might use Teams for some of your classes. I know a lot of companies use it, and corporate workers are used to doing that kind of thing, but we had to make it easy for even teachers to use. There are other products like Flipgrid and Minecraft that we improved as a result of the pandemic. And so, but I think all of that is really also a testament to our user base, who gave us a lot of feedback that allowed us to improve our products. And so hopefully all of you have noticed that some of these things have become easier to use. We've got more features and more layouts, a lot of things. And hopefully many of you have experimented more with collaborating online.
Great, thanks, Isabel. And that sort of segues into the next question. I'm going to throw it out to everybody. Maybe Daryl, you first. As we were all, and Isabel was relating, we were all sort of forced out of our offices, and children and college students were also thrown out of their classrooms. What were some of the ways that your company adopted, or what practices, maybe business practices and innovations, did they do to make sort of the office work and the important work that we all do continue?
Well, hey, thank you, Bill. Hey, a big thanks goes out to Isabella and Microsoft. We're a Teams user, and I can't say that we're more proud to use it. It's really helped us communicate effectively, so thank you. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, digitalization, has been a major focus for us at Dow for some time. The unprecedented challenges of COVID-19 pandemic have really reinforced that value of that investment. and digitization over and over. And so moving to cloud-based systems, beginning a few years ago, enabled and helped us to seamlessly transition, I think, about 2/3 of our workforce, so say 24,000 people, to a work from home environment within a matter of days, dating back to March of 2020, with really no disruptions to our ability to do our jobs. It also helped our customers to smoothly continue to transact with Dow virtually, and allowed us to quickly grow our customer experience capabilities while responding to the challenges of the pandemic. So, for example, we really started hosting virtual technology seminars for our customers and collaborators around the world. And in many cases, participation significantly exceeded what we experienced with traditional customer interactions before COVID-19. And then we also extended this concept beyond just webinars and developed a virtual 3D trade booth that provides an immersive experience for customers to digitally access our technologies and connect with Dow's leading scientists from their home office or from their home or their office anywhere in the world. So, we really expanded a lot there. And then we also expanded high resolution video capability in our labs to enable remote live product trials with our customers and our value chain partners, providing real-time, virtually hands-on introductions to Dow technologies. And as we use digital tools to proliferate COVID-19 related innovations, from introducing a simplified face mask to virtually connecting with partners, to developing and donating isolation gowns to help frontline workers, all of that. And I have more to come on Dow innovation examples later on in the presentation. Back to you, Bill.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Daryl. Mike, what were some of the things that the sort of force this spurred at Tenneco?
Yeah. I guess again, consistent with what Daryl said, we love teams at Tenneco. That's been a great enabler for us around the world to collaborate together. So first of all, that was a huge change in our business, and we've been able to be we're working remotely still to this day for the majority of our office staff, whether we're talking about salespeople or engineers or labs or senior level management. So I think from that standpoint, things have gone very well. I think much better than we even anticipated. I think being a manufacturing company, though, and doing some fairly heavy manufacturing, we're used to traveling to our locations. Our customers are used to traveling to our plants, whether it's in Mexico or Germany or wherever. So kind of bridging that gap was, I think, an interesting challenge. How do we basically take someone into a plant remotely? So I think we use some technology like the Halo lens, where people can actually walk into a facility with a camera, connected
HoloLens, yes. HoloLens is the virtual reality device.
Yeah, the virtual reality. So like for us, that was a great example of being able to take someone, an expert in another country, into the manufacturing facility, into a machine setting to help fix a problem or diagnose an issue or show a customer what's actually happening. So I think that was a great example of using technology to kind of bridge a gap that occurred because people can't be face to face. The other, I guess, aspect, and I mentioned it earlier, was really just enabling our team to still come to work every day. So the level of work to make it a safe workplace, whether it was the masks, face goggles, the huge amount of sanitation and extra cleanliness throughout the facilities. There was a huge undertaking there. I mean, in some cases, building dividers on manufacturing tables, all these little things put together is a huge undertaking, and I think it went very smoothly. And then I think the vaccination effort as well that we went through in our manufacturing facilities, getting people out to get vaccinated, organizing events with local governments to help our teams and their families become vaccinated. I think a lot went into that. In some cases, our plants in Brazil that I helped to oversee, we were donating bottled oxygen to the local hospital to help save lives. So I guess that collaboration between what infrastructure does a manufacturing facility have, a company like us have, and how can we help the community and our people? So I think a lot of great examples at Tenneco.
Yeah, Mike, and just to follow up on that, do you think that the experience with I'm talking more about sort of the lack of ability to travel. Do you think that'll translate into something that will keep going in the future, or do you think you'll sort of revert back to the old
Yeah,
world?
I think we all want to get back to traveling more, to seeing people face to face. I think to some degree we'll see less of it. Certainly, just because we've been able to learn that we can operate differently. And in some cases, we still aren't traveling back to China at some of our Asia locations. So we're still kind of further apart, although traveling's kind of opening back up. But I think we'll have to see. I think maybe be less, but I hope it opens back up still.
Great. Thanks, Mike. And Isabel, anything from your end on how things may have changed for the workforce at Microsoft?
Yeah, well, I think we at Microsoft, we've changed some of our practice. Obviously, we're actually still not fully back into the office again. I mean, each of us goes in probably once in a while to collaborate, but I do think that we're looking at a transformation of the way people work, and in a way that we think will really encourage diversity. I know for me as a mother, I've had challenges in my work life because I've had a lot of travel, and it's caused me to take different jobs and do different things as a result of not wanting to be away from my family that much. And I actually saw this as like a great way to get people to think about new ways of working, and that the technology can enable that. It's really leapfrogged in terms of, I think, the way people think about travel and how much of it is necessary. I think it will always be necessary to some degree, as Mike says. I mean, I don't think we can always live in this virtual universe, but hopefully a lot more can be achieved while we're apart. And then when we're together, we make use of that collaboration time even more greatly. But it enables, collaboration all around the globe. Even if, again, at some point you have to get together in person. We now hear this term, the metaverse. And I think for Microsoft, we've been, on that journey for a long time, but I don't think that before the pandemic experience, many other people really saw that as a reality, that we would have factories where people didn't actually have to go in, that you could use HoloLens or other virtual reality devices. They didn't see as much, or they didn't maybe trust as much the idea that you could model so much of the work that goes in some of the research, that maybe you wouldn't need to spend as much time in the lab. You certainly still need that, but how much more work can you get done with virtual reality and modeling and that kind of thing. So we talk about the metaverse now, and I know, everyone claims that they have a metaverse, and now we have a new company called Meta. But I do think that the pandemic actually accelerated the thinking about that in people's minds. And I think it'll just bring the world closer together. And I think it'll enable all kinds of new ways of working that I hope really, help people that, have been maybe geographically diverse, or for whatever reason, challenged from their family lives, to be able to work and to live their best selves and achieve more.
Great. Thank you.
Hey, Bill, just one comment on that, if I could. I think that the speed of collaboration has changed as well. In the past, you used to wait to get on a flight to go visit someone. And now with the technology we have, I think it's not only the collaboration, it's how quickly we can set up a meeting and work together, around the world. And I think it's increased the pace of what we're accomplishing as a company.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely a positive. And I would say the one sort of downside that I've seen, or at least experienced, is with IPO, for example. One of the great things about IPO was the sort of coffee bar conversations that you would have, the sort of one-offs that you might run into somebody and have, that not only that personal connection, but maybe you had some, business issue between the companies that you wanted to talk about, that wasn't a formal, sort of Teams meeting that you would set up or the like. But going to the conferences and hearing the speakers, that certainly was an advantage not to lose, but we did, I think, lose something from the interpersonal and the ability to have that sort of one-on-one sidebar conversation that is kind of hard to do in the virtual environment without knowing how to sort of do all the different things that you have to know how to do to get to a separate room and sort of thing. Great. I'd like to sort of pivot now maybe to talking about what are intellectual property. And when we talk about intellectual property, we all know, but I just want to make sure that we're letting others know that it's patents, it's copyrights, it's also know-how that individuals possess or that they gather as part of their job or some of their standard operating procedures that may be proprietary to them. How did some of those things help in the things that you companies did to contribute to the fight against COVID, and what were some of the things that maybe, if you're able to talk about it, that seemed to get improved, and part of your IP that's germane to the business going forward as a result of some of the things that you might have done with COVID. And Isabel, maybe we'd start with you.
Okay. Well, I think we saw, maybe some new ways of looking at IP. I know it's different, for the medical industry, for example, or the chemical industry, but I think we started to look at new ways of collaborating and new IP constructs. So, for example, what we noticed, and we launched something called what we call the Open Data Campaign, which is basically encouraging companies to allow more usage of their data, or even governments. So, for example, I think people came to see the value of massive amounts of data more during this time, and also were interested in sharing it more. So we developed a set of agreements that allow people to share their data either publicly, or maybe they don't want to share it completely and they only want to share it for a certain collaboration. But we have different tools to enable that, and also considering things like privacy issues. So for example, the United Kingdom was very interested in some of this data, and they could use a lot of data to kind of track weather patterns and also traffic patterns, which let them figure out, were people really quarantining, were they not, where were they going to have outbreaks, and that kind of thing. So I think we saw we tried to encourage people to think about some of these things that were proprietary in a little different way. Again, not necessarily giving it away, but allowing better coordination. And in some instances, people did realize that it's actually more valuable if you give it away. Other things that we did is that as I said, we took this open COVID pledge, which pledged our patents for use for a limited time to mitigate and contain the disease. And from there, actually, we also it opened up a new construct of thinking about collaboration and releasing innovations to solve the world's greatest problems. So another thing that we've done more recently is also during the pandemic, but in the second year of the pandemic, is on Earth Day, we also took a pledge where we pledged a bunch of our patents that just for the use of generating and storing and distributing low carbon energies. And a few other companies took that pledge with us. And so what we see is some of you might be familiar, for example, with the concept of open source in the software industry. I think, 30 years ago, that was considered foreign, that why would you just give away all of your copyrighted software and your other IP rights in your software? But what we found is there are companies that just built amazing, innovation, but also were able to make money, on services and other things, even though they were willing to give away some of their IP rights, but, under certain license terms. So it's not completely free. You have to live by the license terms of them. And that's something that we're seeing more and more in other areas of computing and moving into hardware. Again, I think there's more desire to think about new things or new constructs for intellectual property, again, where we have huge issues that we're facing globally that we all need to really accelerate our innovation in. So those are some of the things that we've done a little bit differently. We also obviously still have all of our own other traditional IP concepts where we do keep things proprietary, but more and more we're looking at ways that we can encourage people to be a little bit more open with their intellectual property, for the purposes of collaborating, and that we all are able to still innovate and thrive as companies even by, releasing more things publicly.
Great, thanks, Isabel. Daryl, tell us a little bit about Dow's experience in that regard.
Sure, Bill, thank you. Hey, our contributions kind of evolved with what was needed at the time. So I have two examples. First is a material science company. Dow doesn't make any personal protective gear, but that didn't stop our scientists from designing and fabricating a new face shield for healthcare workers when it was needed most. And what was unique about these face shields is that the design is comprised of just two pieces, which streamlines the component assembly and allows it for face shield production from multiple different materials versus just one, which one material could become scarce. So these shields could be made from many different things. And we partnered with Michigan-based Tinker Lab to fabricate the face shield for donations to hospitals. But as we did that, we also knew that the need for face shields was far greater than what we could produce on our own. So even in partnership with Tinker Lab, so we made the innovative and proprietary design available to the public to download and really for any fabricator to use or anybody to use, right? So that was one example. And another great example is Dow's, and this sort of shows the evolution, is Dow's important role enabling the pharmaceutical industry to develop vaccines, which is probably near and dear to you, Bill. To develop COVID-19 vaccines, researchers can use bioprocessing, which allows cells to replicate vaccine ingredients, right? And historically, batches of the cells were grown inside big stainless steel tanks before, and then they were purified and formulated into vaccines. And then, however, this method of vaccine development requires a significant amount of capital investment, water, energy, time to clean those stainless steel tanks, sterilize them, and validate the tanks. And minor impurities can interfere with that whole process. So, clearly many high volume products will continue to use fixed stainless steel systems, but single use or disposable bioprocessing systems are being increasingly adopted for commercial products. And our Dow's healthcare and hygiene team, worked with the pharmaceutical industry to develop materials for single use bioprocessing bags that can either line or replace stainless steel tanks. So the bags enable, cleaner, safer, more efficient operation of batch operated bioprocessing systems. And additionally, the bags, are much more reliable and more sustainable than traditional stainless steel tanks. So there's two examples. Back to you, Bill.
Yeah, great. Great. Appreciate that, Daryl. Yeah, I know Merck has been adopting some of that as well. And I think it also increases efficiency because there's no real downtime for cleaning between if you're going to make product A and then switch to product B in some other campaign. So it is a huge innovation, a huge advance, and certainly we're looking to adopt it in the future here. Mike, what about Tenneco? What can you tell us there?
Yeah, I think really going back to our ventilator project, we were able to leverage our proprietary process technology, how we manufacture wire harnesses, and then apply that in a new way. So I think using our technology, our intellectual property with regards to that, was a huge part about us to be able to be successful. And I think the other aspect is the development process. We were given a set of blueprints, drawings, and in a matter of days to turn that into a product that's going out the door. So to be able to set up the manufacturing process within a matter of days, to validate suppliers, and to have a product coming off of an assembly line in really a matter of days, I think speaks to the strength of the processes that we have internally, that we hold as a company, and using that in a new way to support people during this pandemic. So I think that's the best example from the Tenneco side.
Great, thanks, Mike. And while I have you, one of the things that the title of this is collaboration. So you talked a little bit about working with GM. Could you expand a little bit on that? And were there other companies that you ended up collaborating with during this period to either help COVID or to continue critical business operations?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the ventilator production, we were able to be successful with the GM project. There were some other companies as well that we were looking into working with. I think the other side of things is our continuation of our core business to support the critical industries. You know, we manufacture automotive components, heavy duty components that are going into a Caterpillar engine or a Cummins engine that's going to go into a ambulance or a police vehicle, something that's going to support the infrastructure of our economies and of our healthcare system, generators, backup generators for hospitals, all those types of things. So, I mean, it was, I think, a continuation of what we do in and of itself was a huge part of our response. And when the entire automotive industry was shutting down, in the depths of COVID, we kept factories running in order to support those core essential industries that never shut down. So I think that's and also an interesting aspect of what we were able to do.
Great, thanks. And Daryl, how about Dow? What sort of collaborations did you end up, creating during the period and fighting COVID, or just to continue your business operations?
So, hey, Bill, thank you. Hey, I have two examples. For healthcare professionals that were caring for COVID-19 patients, we collaborated with people to develop isolation gowns, which are among the most used and needed personal protection equipment, in hospitals, right? And in response to this critical need, Dow collaborated, get this, with 9 key partners to develop and donate isolation gowns to help frontline workers in Texas, Louisiana, and Mexico. And let me illustrate. I'll just quickly do this. It was a 9-way collaboration where Dow worked with each partner, and each partner donated their time and resources to the project. The gown itself is made of polyethylene, non-woven material coated with a layer of polyethylene film, and that is made with a resin donated by Dow. Fitessa manufactured the non-woven material that provides tear resistance and soft touch. Cadillac Products Packaging Company provided extrusion coating on the film to make it durable. 3M and SureTape donated the tape to provide barrier performance on the gown's sewn seams. Magna International provided the resources to cut and sew the gowns. DuPont provided isolation gown design expertise. Landell Packaging Systems donated all the boxes to ship the gowns. And lastly, Plastics FS Technologies donated the bags for each gown to be packaged in for distribution. So there was a 9-way collaboration to come up and develop isolation gowns. One more example, as we all remember, at the height of the pandemic, critical items like N95 masks and respirators were, becoming very, very scarce. I mean, people just couldn't find them and they were in very short supply. These masks and respirators ensure the safety of frontline workers who are often in direct contact with patients infected with a hospital, especially, infected with the virus, especially in hospitals. And another great example of a collaboration was a 5-way partnership we engaged in to quickly address the diminishing supply of respirators and masks. And that was for donation to healthcare facilities in Louisiana, Michigan, and Texas. What we developed together is a powered air purifying respirator known as a PAPR or PAPR, which takes the place of traditional medical N95 mask or a mask and visor and features a replaceable polyethylene hood. And the clear hoods are both flexible and comfortable and can quickly be replaced between patients. In that collaboration, Whirlpool Corporation designed, manufactured, and assembled the headset. Dow provided the polyethylene resins for the hoods. Reynolds Consumer Products, the maker of Hefty brand, designed and produced the disposable hood. Volkswagen of America brokered connections with materials and supply chain partners to source critical components. And then the overall protective piece of headgear and respirator system was then manufactured and sold through Win Health Labs. in addition to initial donation to hospitals. So there's a fine example of 5 different companies coming together to collaborate to make respirators. And I guess lastly, hey, I know we all have high school and college students watching us today, and I just want to say, give a big shout out to all of you. And if you find yourself looking for a great job as a problem solver now or in the future, please think Dow, please think Tenneco, please think Microsoft. We are from 3 great companies, and each of us are very proud of the companies that we work for. Thank you.
And I'd add Merck to that list as well.
And Merck, I'm sorry, Merck.
That's quite all right. And Isabel, can you give us a bit of collaborations that Microsoft may have gotten into as a result of the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, in the tech industry, we all have to collaborate because you want all of your devices and all of your cloud services working together, whether you use an iPhone or a Galaxy, a Samsung Galaxy, or, a Surface laptop, whether or not you use, a Sony device, a Sony gaming device, or a Nintendo. So that's sort of par for the course for us. But, because I do know we have a lot of students on the phone, I thought I'd also talk about just some of our little collaborations that really, I think, sprung up a huge amount during the pandemic. I mean, we at Microsoft have a huge commitment to pro bono work, pro bono legal work. But I think what makes us a little special in that is that a lot of our lawyers are very technical. And so we worked with government agencies to digitize a lot of their stuff. Particularly, during this pandemic, there's also been a lot of concern about criminal justice. So we've partnered with a lot of law enforcement and government agencies, and also, civil rights groups, to collect a huge amount of data to see some of the patterns where we can predict, issues that issues of racial, or criminal injustice, for example, and notice some of the patterns there. We've also worked with various rights groups around, there was concern over whether there was heightened violence against the Asian American community. Again, there wasn't a lot of data on that. So we've partnered with a lot of other communities and community organizations and nonprofits to really gather that data so we can see what the patterns are and see, what the means of prevention we have for some of those things. And then it goes to even just really minor collaborations or very local collaborations where a lot of our lawyers, we used to physically go to clinics to help people with immigration or landlord tenant disputes or civil rights disputes, anything like that. And because we couldn't do that in person anymore, we actually started doing, enabling these clinics to take place virtually, but also digitize a huge amount of the intake forms, right? So now all of these aid agencies, have a lot better way of working with the clients and reaching with the clients. And it's really speeded up our ability to help, and also really speeded up the ability of the lawyers here to actually spend more time on pro bono, because they don't have to go drive to the clinic, fill out a bunch of forms and then exchange them back and forth to the clients. But instead, we're able to do it all virtually, and in a much shorter period of time, you can get your problem solved. So I know a lot of students spend a lot of time volunteering and doing this kind of work. And so we're always, looking for ways that we can help people make that more efficient. And we got a lot of uptick on that during the pandemic.
Great. Thanks, Isabel. I think, the pro bono aspect of lawyers' commitment is incredibly huge, and we're all looking for ways to contribute during this, and that's an excellent story about the ability to make things more efficient, and will carry over in the future as well. So that's a great story. So I'd also talk a little bit in terms of collaborations that we've done. I think one of the things about this pandemic and the vaccines that actually were developed, an incredible speed with which they were, scaled up or basically discovered, scaled up, and then distributed, did require a fair amount of collaboration. And as I had said at the outset, the avenues that we were looking at never really panned out as well as some others. But then, we ended up with one of our competitors, Johnson & Johnson, manufacturing the vaccine that they had and were developing, because obviously we have a fairly extensive manufacturing capability, and we're able to dedicate some to that as well. So I think there's a tremendous amount of collaboration going on in all industries, and certainly the embedded knowledge and know-how, almost as important as patents, were very important to those types of collaborations. Well, I think we're coming towards the end of the hour, and I want to thank all the panelists for their excellent insight and their companies for all they've done over these past 2.5 years or so, or it seems like much longer, but and I think we're sort of on the horizon is sort of the end of the pandemic, or just some sort of low level thing that we can all manage with. But again, thanks very much. And if you stick around, IPO has a bit of a video to show you of all the collaborations and contributions that the members of IPO have made. So thank you very much.
Coronavirus cases continue to rise. Health experts are also concerned about emerging hotspots.
Getting more beds and then getting more testing. When this started, we were in double digits for the number of cases, the number of people being affected and hospitalized.
Plans are being put in place in case there is a surge. We're trying to add additional locations and more beds.